The American astronaut Michael Collins, who flew the Apollo 11 command module while his crewmates became the first people to land on the moon in 1969, has died after battling cancer. In a statement on his Twitter account, the Collins family said, "Mike always faced the challenges of life with grace and humility and faced this, his final challenge, in the same way." Well, Michael Collins spoke to the BBC's Stephen Sackur in 2019 on the 50th anniversary of that historic mission. He described how he struggled with the attention he received.
There were three of us, of course, on that flight, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and I. Three very lucky people. Neil Armstrong was born in 1930, Buzz Aldrin 1930, Mike Collins 1930. Three quite different people. Neil Armstrong didn't like the spotlight. Buzz Aldrin does like the spotlight. Mike Collins doesn't like, with all due respect, sir, Mike Collins doesn't like the spotlight either.
Well, Commander Chris Hadfield is a former astronaut. He joins us live from Ontario in Canada. Chris, he may not have liked the spotlight, but he deserved it.
He was a tremendously accomplished man professionally, served his country through his whole life, did some amazing things, wrote a terrific book, and he was humble and a gracious man as well. He's been a role model to so many.
And tell us about one of those amazing things, the work he had to do while his colleagues descended to the surface of the moon.
He flew the command module going around and around the moon, around the other side of the moon alone. Can you imagine, Roz, what it felt like to be alone inside a spaceship, 1969, disappearing behind the moon, and then, 40 minutes later, the Earth popping into view in front of you, where all the rest of humanity lived. What an amazing early perspective of the rest of the universe Michael had.
And how do you assess the impact of that mission on the work that you and many other astronauts and cosmonauts have done since?
People saw themselves differently after Apollo 11. There were more PhDs per capita in the United States in the 10 years after Apollo 11 than any time before or any time since. Those three men, Mike Collins being one of them, they inspired people to see themselves differently and make different choices with their lives, self-included. He lived a wonderful life, and he inspired me greatly.
What kind of character did he need to be to perform those roles that you've just described?
Immensely competent, smart, capable, self-effacing. The humility, I think, was an important part of it. Putting other people's needs ahead of his own. The understanding of what the word service actually means. And an enormous patience and, comfort in his own skills, not needing to entertain or impress anybody else. And yet he did something that is as legendary as anything a human has ever done.
And now we're in a situation where America is looking once again to put someone back on the moon.
Oh, not just America, every space agency in the world, because we've discovered 400 billion liters of water on the moon, and it has an area bigger than Africa. It's a tremendous opportunity and resource, and we're building rockets that can get us there and back much more simply than the one that Michael flew.
And I'm thinking, as I listen to you, the scale of his achievements, of course, are well documented. Do you think he was prepared? Do you think all of them were prepared for the attention they got, the fact they became arguably the most famous people on Earth?
Michael and his crew came to I think, Windsor Castle and visited with the Queen and Prince Philip. They were lauded and feted everywhere around the world. Their training had been almost exclusively technical. And there was such a hurry to try and do it while it was still in the 1960s. They were not properly prepared. Most of their marriages failed, but Michael, to his credit, was married to the same woman for her entire life, just up until 5 or 6 years ago. So he had the toughness of spirit and individuality and purposefulness in order to even maintain his private life, despite all of the huge pressures.
And as you think about a fellow explorer and a wonderful life having been led, what are your memories of him in the last minute of the program?
He wrote a book called Carrying the Fire, and I read it as a young teenager, and it really showed an alternate path for life, how you could work so hard on something that might never happen and find great joy and fulfillment in it, and maybe even accomplish great things. It's a wonderful book of the Apollo program in the 60s and early 70s. And that's just one thing he did in addition to everything else. We should all try and live lives as well as Michael Collins did.
Commander Hadfield, thank you very much for your time. That's Chris Hadfield. The American astronaut Michael Collins, who flew the Apollo 11 command module on NASA's historic moon mission in 1969, has died from cancer aged 90. Buzz Aldrin, who walked on the moon with Neil Armstrong on that mission, tweeted, "Dear Mike, wherever you've been or will be, you will always have the fire to carry us deftly to new heights and to the future. We will miss you." Well, Michael Collins spoke to the BBC's Stephen Sackur in 2019 on the 50th anniversary of that historic mission, and he described what seeing the moon was like.
If there's any part of the flight of Apollo 11 that sticks in my memory, it is the memory of a little tiny thing that you can obscure with your thumbnail, blue and white, the white of clouds, the blue of the ocean, just a trace of land, gorgeous, very shiny, bright background, totally black. I will remember that all my life, and it leads one to consider, well, is it so pretty? Is it so quiet? Is it so pristine? For some reason, the word fragile came up out of the murk somehow. I know not how, but I thought, God, it's a fragile little thing, isn't it?